Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here today as we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, comic books. My name is Jose. I love comic books. I love talking about them, and I love sharing them with you. Feel free to follow me on social media if you would like. Links are in the description below. I've also posted a link to the Marvel fan site that I have plots, synopsis, and character bios for this issue. Before we actually start, I just want to tell you, I love the black. I don't do it very often, and the yellow is nice. I think they did this once with red. Oh, it just looks so awesome. The all black on this portion right here just looks very good. So, the Uncanny X-Men 246. Chris Claremont actually crafts a very good two-parter. This is a two-parter. We're going to be looking at part one today. It starts off a little slow, but becomes much becomes more action packed. But as always, we start out with the drama. Now, 240 so 246 and 247 are going to tell this story with Master Mold. It's the coloring's a little bit weird. This cover was colored very weirdly. I'm going to talk about this in just a moment about where the X-Men are and where they're going. But here we see Rogue on top of this pile with Master Mold grabbing Psylocke here and about to just kill Rogue. So, this like I mentioned, it's a two-parter. 248 is the first issue with Jim Lee. Jim Lee does a fill-in issue, and I think that they liked him so much, they bring him for the three-parter in the Acts of Vengeance, and then he becomes the regular artist couple issues after that. But the X-Men are about to go in a very weird era. Prior to Jim Lee arriving with the first appearance of Gambit. So prior to Jim Lee arriving, X-Men sort of starts. I don't know. I don't know what the direction Chris Claremont was trying to take the title, but between Silvestri kind of going with a little bit of a sloppy art, which is kind of weird because when he goes to Wolverine, the Wolverine solo series, he really does a really good job there. Really good. So, the X-Men become a lot of after Silvestri leaves, it's quite a few fill-in artists. Eventually, Jim Lee takes over full time, and then Claremont ends up leaving after that. He was pushed out, but to be honest, and as a fan of this era of X-Men, meaning the Chris Claremont era of X-Men, which I have covered every single issue of this era. I have a playlist, and everything is done in reading order. I have a playlist for X-Men. I have a playlist for Excalibur. I have a playlist for X Factor. I have a playlist for New Mutants. I have a playlist for Wolverine. I have a playlist where everything's together in reading order. So a lot. There's a lot of stuff happening, and I think Chris Claremont ultimately, if he hadn't left on his own or been pushed out, whatever you want to, however you want to take it as, whether he was forced out, whether he quit on his own. It was clear that they wanted Jim Lee to be the dominant force for the X-Men, and I totally understand why, because Jim Lee is the greatest penciler of all time. Debate your mama on that. As far as a penciler goes, there's Jim Lee. Jim Lee. He's the greatest penciler. I'm not saying he's the greatest star artist, but he is the greatest penciler. His compositions, his style is copied. He is the he when you think of the 90s, it's the Jim Lee influence. When Jim Lee left, it was every Marvel and DC were like draw like Jim Lee. Everything was Jim Lee-fied. The image effect or the Jim Lee effect, however you want to call it. It wasn't that. And Todd McFarlane is my favorite, by the way. So even though I think Jim Lee is the greatest penciler, Todd McFarlane is my favorite, just because his art style is so unique. But and Marc Silvestri is not too bad. But let me tell you, Marc Silvestri doesn't become Marc Silvestri till he goes to Wolverine. And we will get there. Right now, in the Wolverine title, we are during this time. We're covering. Just got done with the Peter David issues, and then we are going to go into the John Byrne when he returns with Archie Goodwin and Klaus Janson. X-Men, though, Marc Silvestri, I think wasn't really applying himself, and I cannot imagine how great this title would have been with a fully Marc Silvestri. Now, Marc Silvestri that we know now, if you take a look at this cover, Dan Green is his inker during this time, and Dan Green is by the way, rest in peace, Dan Green, is a brusher. So he uses brush, and you can tell here by the thick lines. Marc Silvestri is more of a micron kind of person, and he ends up finding himself. At Wolverine, Dan Green, I think, goes to a more thinner, perhaps he goes with a pen, but when Silvestri goes to Image and the microns start coming out, it really changes how how Silvestri was perceived. I like Marc Silvestri quite a bit. For me, Image is Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee, and Marc Silvestri. Don't care about Rob Liefeld. Don't care about Jim Valentino. Don't care about Eric Larson. I'm sure that for those of you that like Larson and Liefeld, good for you. I care nothing for their new stuff or even their Image stuff, but I will pick up anything Marc Silvestri draws. I will pick up anything Jim Lee draws, and if Todd McFarlane ever decides that he would like to draw again, that man hasn't drawn in years other than the occasional cover here and there, you damn right I'm going to pick it up. So, all right, the Day of Other Lights. I have wasted 8 minutes and haven't even started this. So, Dazzler is looking at the Siege Perilous here. And this story here, with these different looks of Dazzler, are reminiscent of X-Men Annual 11, I believe, with Alan Davis that he drew with Paul Neary before Excalibur. And you've got Lawyer Dazzler, you've got X-Men Hero Dazzler, you've got Singer Dazzler, you got Homeless Lady Dazzler, and you got Mom Dazzler. Chris Claremont is our writer. Marc Silvestri is the penciler. Dan Green, rest in peace, is the inker. No Tom Orzechowski on letters. We've got a Joe Rosen who actually does a pretty good job imitating Tom Orzechowski. So he actually does a really good job. So Glynis Oliver continues to be the colorist, and Bob Harris with Tom DeFalco. Tom DeFalco replaced Jim Shooter as editor-in-chief. Bob Harris will replace, I think he'll replace Mark Grenwald, who replaces Tom DeFalco. But then Joe Quesada replaces Bob Harris, and then Bob Harris then goes to DC Comics and becomes the editor-in-chief there. Bob Harris is the one that is responsible for Jim Lee having so much power. Rob Liefeld, he's the one that removed Louis Simonson out of the way and removed Chris Claremont out of the way so that um, Jim Lee and Liefeld would have more control because they saw what happened when you let Todd McFarlane beat Todd McFarlane, so they wanted to make sure they kept them happy. Unfortunately, it didn't work out quite that well when they all left for Image Comics. So, all right. So Dazzler is looking at the Siege Perilous using her powers. She's able to make sound. Now there is a tape playing. A tape is what was used before CDs, and CDs are what was used before MP3 players and listening to music on whatever you use now to listen to your music. And so all the different alternatives, but they all die. Every single one. The lawyer is shot. The hero dies. The Dazzler, the movie one is killed by a fan here. The mom one dies with a truck. The homeless one freezes to death. It is just not good to be Dazzler. And she's like, what the hell? How? God, that is not fair. And so the Siege Perilous kind of becomes alive, and you can see that the Dazzler kind of becomes zombified there, and they start fighting. Suddenly she's gone. I love the dry brush being employed here by Dan Green. But now it's dark because she's run out of her. She only uses her power. There has to be sound. She just can't make light without sound. And she has lost. They used all the power, so she puts the tape and to create some sound, and then it comes on and notices blood. Now we are in New York. Oh, the X-Men are in the Outback era during that time, and there's a drug deal going on, and Nimrod comes through. We haven't seen Nimrod since X-Men 309, right before the Mutant Massacre. He was supposedly destroyed, but Chris Claremont is bringing him back, and after he kills everyone here and reduces them to ash, he is going to take their money. And you ask, why does the android need money? Well, same reason God needs a starship. That is a Star Trek, The Wrath of... no, not The Wrath of Khan. Undiscovered Country reference here. But he decides, maybe that money would go good to the community and all that. So he also leaves his signature here because, hey, robots need to know that other people are paying attention, apparently. So, all right. So he leaves his print there. And now we are back in Australia. Wolverine is putting on this gel. And apparently, so when I did Havoc and the Wolverine, I've already covered it. It is on the playlist. It's on the Wolverine playlist, and it's on the playlist where I have everyone, the X Universe playlist. I had it after X-Men, oh my goodness, because it came out. So this miniseries came out about a year and a half before this issue. So I put it in a different part, but Chris Claremont says that this happened after in Inferno. So silly me. So this is the gel that he used. He says, I picked it up when I was with Havoc in Mexico. And then she makes reference to the bubonic plague, which she did. And of course, Wolverine this is the same hairstyle that he had that Kent Williams drew on him. And so he goes in and gets rid of it. And so Wolverine is taking a leave of absence. And he says, something's come up. I got to go. She offers to help. He says, I appreciate it, but this is private business. She's wearing her shades and jackets. And he's like, you are welcome to them. They look much better on you than they do on me. But folks wouldn't expect that from a goddess. And she says, so long as I remain true to myself It doesn't matter what I appear. So she says, you don't need to go alone, but he says, I know, but by the same token, my life's bound by obligations. And says that he has a duty. And he says that one before all this he wouldn't have cared, but he's a different person, and so he gave his word. And she asked, sorry, how long will you be gone? He says, expect me when I'm back. And she says, when will that be? And he says, when the job is done, and pops his claws. And that's going to be Wolverine's only appearance until he comes back in issue 251. Now, Chris Claremont was originally going to go back to writing Wolverine, or at least this story, but he never did. Now, it eventually got released a couple of, I think last year, in 2025, in the 4-issue mini, oh my gosh, Deep Cut, I believe is what it's called. And I will be covering that. I got that series, pretty cool stuff. So we will be covering that. But that is what was supposed to happen. But it was sort of an unresolved plot point. But a lot of people didn't care because Wolverine was all over the place with miniseries and mini. So people really did not keep up with, like, oh, he had this job. They just assumed it had something to do with, I don't know, his own book, which was in taking place in Madripoor, and all these other different miniseries that were going on. So, all right, now we are in Washington, D.C., because we're all over the place in this issue. And it's Carol Danvers who is inside the body of Rogue. Now, I'm going to explain this. Carol Danvers is not dead. Carol Danvers is actually still alive, and she is in she's binary with the oh my gosh, what is their name? Corsair and the whatever. I forgot their names right now. The Star, my goodness gracious. The Starjammers, my god. Anyway, so Rogue ended up taking, assuming her personality as well, or her they live together, but the other one's alive. So there's essentially two Miss Marvels, one inside Rogue, and they're taking turns inhabiting Rogue's body, and the other one is in outer space. So it's not like she's dead, but she somehow has the personality in her because she absorbed her during oh my goodness gracious, Avengers, the first appearance of Rogue, Avengers Annual, I think it's 10 as well. So Michael Golden, great book. I have covered it. During back then, Chris Claremont was also writing the Miss Marvel book, and then it got canceled with a bunch of unresolved things. So he resolved them partially in that Avengers Annual, and then later in Uncanny X-Men. So, all right. So her brother died in the Vietnam War, because that is the Vietnam Wall. And she says, you shouldn't have died. None of you should have died. Gives him a salute and takes off. This is actually great storytelling here. Back in the Outback, the X-Men are just exercising. And he throws the knives. Havoc's going to try and get him. There's two that are left. And continuing to fight Colossus. It ricochets off Colossus, aims at, goes to Longshot, but Longshot is his power or his luck. He's like, oh my god, I almost killed him. And then Dazzler shows up, and he's like, hey, can I play too? And they're like, sure. And so now the X-Men are, or she's practicing with the X-Men, gives Havoc a kiss, and Havoc is like, I'm gonna get better. So, all right, and so here we go. This is actually the meat of the story that is going to run for the next two issues. Now, we are in the Hellfire Club. Now, let's remember, I am doing both all books. So I'm doing X Factor and New Mutants and Excalibur, X Men, everything, all like in order. During New Mutants, the Black King, who is Sebastian Shaw, was dethroned, was kicked out by Magneto, who happens to be the White King. I say Magneto, not Magneto. But Chris Claremont either didn't look at it, nobody told him, I don't know, didn't care. It doesn't matter because we are in the Hellfire Club and the Black King is still here. This is Sharon something, um, and she is married to um, a U.S. senator, and she used to be a maid there at the Hellfire Club, and sees two here, and they're also happy, and they're like, "Oh, you deserve every moment." And he's like, "Hey, you got a spare uniform?" And so she goes, "I'll see." By the way, I really love Silvestri's art. Here's Tessa, seen and not heard, and here's the senator. I really forgot his name. It's Robert something. Anyway, uh, they want another. Sebastian wants another Sentinel now. Why does a mutant want the Sentinels? Well, capitalism is what he actually said. That is his exact reasoning for with the creating of the or always pursuing, because it's a good government contract which provides a lot of money and a lot of stuff. So his whole thing, it is in New Mutants. Oh, I just covered it. It's the last New Mutants that I covered. I think it was 76. And he says, when Magneto's like, you're doing the Sentinels, and he's like, why are you doing this? He goes, capitalism. I was like, oh my god. It's but because of a government contract. I'm always like, are there no other government contracts? Now, here's the thing. All right, so this is the kind of he says, so he tells Robert, God, I don't know, his last name will come up here. And he's like, there's no support in the Senate for any further Sentinel projects. We can't afford to keep throwing good money after bad. And Sebastian Shaw says, the problem, Robert, is that every time a Sentinel determines how to deal with its target mutant, it's invariably destroyed by another. The robot learns, but not quickly enough to do any lasting good. What I propose is a hunter system that is not only capable of learning from its mistake and adapting to new and unexpected situations, but which is also capable of reconstituting itself no matter how badly damaged. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it is 1989. Do you know how much that would cost? It is now 2026 as of this recording, and we don't even have a thing, any machinery, not even a small tiny little nano thing that is capable of fixing itself. So not only is that not possible back then, if even if it was, it would be extremely expensive. In fact, I would guarantee that if we could come up with something like that now, any machine that would fix itself, it would cost a lot. And so he continues here, even if a single core molecule remains intact, the system can rebuild itself. And since it's constantly learning and improving itself, it can never be beaten the same way twice. And ultimately, it must triumph. And I'm reading that going, and how are you gonna pay for this? This is, yeah, they're gonna tax everybody. All right. And so he says, have you considered the negative implications? If a robot cannot be destroyed, ultimately, how can it be contained? Suppose we lose control, then what? I'm sorry, Sebastian. The risk far outweighs its potential he was going to say benefit. He goes, my mother's ring. And he's like, Sharon, what the devil? You see Shaw smiling. I thought I'd surprise and please you, my love. Do you mind? And Sebastian Shaw laughs. And he's like, all right, I'll leave. And she leaves and takes off her clothes. That is what, and so he ends up spitting it out. And Shaw's like, our Hellfire ladies are more than adornments. They can handle their own. I hope you don't mind, but in Sharon's case, I've wager you've married a tigress. So back now in New York, or rather, we've still been in New York because the Hellfire's in New York. We're now in the West Village, and Rogue visited a person that was uh, a friend of oh my god, Miss Marvel. There's too many characters trying to keep everything straight here. And so Carol Danvers and Rogue's waiting for her. I'm gonna speed this up here because I have spent so much time just talking, and hardly touching the story here. So, she explains how the two of them are um are united and they can't be split, which is not true because it is now they're split. Anyway, there's the Miss Marvel costume, and they just gonna continue talking, a lot of exposition here, and they're not happy. Neither one is happy because they have to share time. They can't just have all the time. Of course, again, the real Miss Marvel is still alive, but the facsimile also wants. Look at the brushing. This is what I mean. Silvestri's art really becomes something legendary. Once this big brush, which I am a huge fan of the big brush. I love me big fat lines. Love them. But they don't fit Silvestri, unfortunately. So, all right, at this construction site, I mean, Chris Claremont's really packing a lot. This is 22 pages, probably 24. Just packing stuff. Somehow this site is getting bombed, and Nimrod, in his secret identity here, discovers it, and he stops it. It explodes. He seems to die, but now he's actually merged with the Master Mold. It is that Sentinel that can continue to get itself. And Rogue and Psylocke continue talking, but they will get the sense of what's going on. And Chris Claremont just did a lot of exposition. You just don't see that very often in today's comic books. The Master Mold is trying to get the 12, which are Cyclops, Storm, and a bunch of other people. To be determined at another time. I do not remember. You can look him up in that website that I put in. So here's the Master Mold, and he's fixing himself. Here comes Rogue dressed as Miss Marvel, and he's like, I should be able to get him since the X-Men aren't detected. But of course, this is the Master Mold, and he does detect them and hits her and swaps. And here comes the Senator with his wife in this gigantic limousine here. Gigantic. Yeah. And he's like, oh, I'm a senator. I ran for president. I may do it again. I have a position, and you as my wife. And she's like, oh, I wouldn't have done it in front of anybody except you and Mr. Shaw. He introduced us. I love you. Yada, yada, yada. And then in comes Rogue, and she's knocked out, and so is the senator here. And Rogue punches out and then falls. She takes the senator out. She's gonna go help Rogue, and then Rogue sort of gets up, and here he comes, and all of a sudden you can see as they look up, and here comes Master Mold, and he tells her to go run, and he shoots, and Sharon is like, oh, please don't die, and he is about to get Rogue Miss Marvel. It's pretty cool here, and he's about to kill her. And next, the light that failed. Oh my goodness, I probably could have covered this in about 15 minutes, maybe less, but I don't know. I felt talkative today, apparently. So, Uncanny X-Men 246, Chris Claremont, Marc Silvestri with Dan Green. Like and subscribe. And I do thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.